All right, what's the acronym? TBH, right? To be honest, that's what kids use on text all the time. At least my 15-year-old does. To be honest, this is about as close as I'll ever get to covering the Combine. Connecting via uplink to Darren Urban and Dani Sureck, a couple of colleagues covering the 2025 NFL Scouting Combine from Indianapolis. And at least maybe, just maybe, we can take solace in the weather, which, come on, I didn't even look, but I'm guessing not nearly what we're getting here in Arizona. Right, D?
Yeah. Well, actually, I just took that. He said D. It could be either one of us. But
That's true.
I went ahead.
It's okay. I'll let you have it.
I actually prefer this weather a little bit more than 90 degrees or whatever you're getting. Believe it or not, I know everybody gets upset about that, but
it's actually not crazy. In years past, it's been really cold or really windy.
Cold, that's why.
It's not horrible.
It's not terrible. And if there's one, well, I have many pet peeves, as you well know, but
I do know.
I would say that one of my major ones is 90-degree temperatures in February in Phoenix.
How is that a pet peeve? A pet peeve is something that somebody does that they can stop doing.
God is making it hot.
Okay, let's not
Mother
get
Nature.
religious here.
Mother Nature. He's got issues with Mother Nature. You know what they say? If you're talking about the weather, you have nothing to talk about, and that could be couldn't be further from the truth. So let's go here. Right off the top, let's see here. Number one, most importantly, has either one of you taken a selfie with Cam Scattaboo? Because, Dani, you know Darren's into selfies all the time. I mean, he's always taking a selfie with someone.
Darren, I'm sure, has got his eyes open and looking for Cam Scattaboo.
I don't think Cam Scattaboo's here yet. Running backs don't get here till the end of the week. This is all the defensive guys have come in.
Darren's going to be wearing his ASU shirt on Friday when running backs
Probably
talk.
not, but...
So there's what we know and what we don't know right now about the draft and at the Combine. We don't know the top pick as of yet, far from a consensus on who's going to be the number one pick. We don't even know the top quarterback yet. We don't know what position the Heisman winner will even play, not for sure. We also will not see the potential number one pick, Abdul Carter, right, the edge out of Penn State, shoulder injury. And then here's my pet peeve. Ashton Jeanty will not work out. You're from Spud State, and you're not going to work out. You're going to big-time the Combine when you're from Spud State, and you're going to save it to the Boise State Pro Day. Really? I had a little bit of an issue with that, a little bit.
I got to be honest, Paul. I don't know if you saw a tweet by a nationally known NFL reporter, but he let us know that Shedeur Sanders wasn't going to throw at the Combine because he was going to, and I'm quoting the tweet now, was going to let his game tape loudly say who he is. So maybe Ashton Jeanty is just loudly letting his game tape show who he is.
So I guess Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward, neither of whom are going to throw. They're just following in the footsteps of last year, right? Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels.
Every year.
They didn't throw, so.
Does it bother? Seriously, I know you said it's a pet peeve. I understand, and apparently you have it in for Boise State players. But this has been something that I've seen. I've come to 25 combines, whatever it is. There's always guys that aren't participating, and it doesn't mean anything. Marvin Harrison didn't do anything last year either.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true, including talking to the media. You're right. Well,
that's true. Yeah. So, I mean, there's always guys that aren't doing stuff. That's just how it is. I think that's only going to get more pronounced as we go. But that's okay because those guys might not throw, but they're still meeting with teams. They're still doing the medical. And quite frankly, if you talk to the Monti, Ossenfort, and the GMs, that's what they want more than the stuff on the field.
Okay. There you go. That's our segue because they did talk to the media, and they did conduct a one-on-one with Dani Sureck. So, Dani, what can you tell us? What can both of you tell us from the podium and the press conference? What stood out the most?
Well, when talking about General Manager Monti Ossenfort, he was very emphatic and forthcoming when talking about wanting to extend tight end Trey McBride, the Pro Bowl tight end who is still ascending, having just finished his third year. There's no set timeline yet, mostly because McBride still has another year of his contract. Ossenfort made it very clear that they want to keep McBride in the building, and that was talking about his character, his preparation, his leadership, his production on the field, similar to all the reasons that running back James Conner and safety Budda Baker earned in-season contract extensions this past year. So it was nice to hear very emphatically. It wasn't we would love to have him. It's a two-party talk. Ossenfort was very clear that they want to keep McBride in this organization, and that's a priority for them.
Yeah, and I think, is it a surprise that he would say that? No, but I think being open about, the reality is they don't have to extend him this offseason. He's got a whole nother year left on his contract. But, because I had asked the question, what does it mean to get James Conner and Budda Baker, for instance, under contract in terms of certainty, that kind of thing, and could the same thing happen with McBride? And I think that's ultimately what the best part about if you extend McBride now would be you're not going into next season, because what's going to happen is if you don't do it this offseason, you're going to be talking about it next offseason. Oh, my God, he's about to hit free agency, or you're going to be talking into the season, actually, like we did with Budda, like we did with James Conner, and you don't want that hanging over the heads. And the reality is you want McBride around. Especially
if McBride has another season, then you're looking at more money.
Yeah, that's
and
also
on top
true.
of that, if he is having a great season, McBride might have had an interest. We're talking under the assumption that something is going to happen this offseason. If he has a great season and hasn't signed an extension, who's to say he doesn't want to test the free agency market? So if it works for both sides, it would make sense to give him that extension this offseason.
Yeah, I saw the one quote from Monti Ossenfort. He said, once we go to market, anything can happen at that point. And he was really talking more about the immediate free agents like L.J. Collier and Roy Lopez and Evan Brown and Will Hernandez, Kelvin Beachum, Dennis Gardeck, Baron Browning. And then there's Kaiser White, which we talked about on the Red Sea Report earlier today with Kyle Vandenbosch and Craig Grialou. Considering, Darren, you brought up that question, they got a deal done for Budda. They got a preemptive deal done on James Conner, Zaven Collins. Didn't get a deal done on Kaiser White. Based on what Kaiser posted on social media, the whole thank you AZ at the end of the regular season, the more I think about it, the more I figure that perhaps the two sides tried and didn't reach a number, an agreed upon consensus. And so maybe that was in his way, at least a short-term goodbye. I'm going to test the market, see what happens. And also, when you look at who could possibly be out there, there's a number of guys that are free agents who are fairly young in the middle of their career, potential replacements at middle linebacker that I could see Monti Ossenfort and Jonathan Gannon pursuing.
See, I agree with you. I think they would have liked to keep Kaiser, but they had a number in mind, and I'm sure Kaiser has a number in mind, and those just don't match right now. And when I hear Monti Ossenfort say, anything can happen once we get to free agency, ultimately, and that's happened in the past too. Look, they're talking to a number of their own free agents. They've told the number of their free agents what the number they're willing to sign them at. If they can get better than that somewhere else, I think the Cardinals will wish them well and say, good luck in your next place. And that's what you have to deal with. And it works both ways. If there's a guy the Cardinals want to keep, you're worried about him leaving. But the other thing, too, is if you don't take that money and the team moves on and there is somebody, like you said, Paul, out on the open market who they think could fill that role and get signed, then, you're going to move on. A great example of that was Marcus Golden when he left to go to, I'm trying to remember where I think it was the Giants, whenever they signed Terrell Suggs.
Yep.
I think they wanted Golden back. He thought he was going to get a big contract. He didn't. They went ahead and signed Terrell Suggs right out of the box, and his opportunity to come back to Arizona at whatever number was gone because they signed Terrell Suggs. So that's a risk a player takes, too, if he hits the open market.
And by the way, if you're wondering about some of those names, just taking a quick look earlier and throwing down some names here on the computer. Nick Bolton, right, starting middle linebacker for Kansas City, age 25.
University of Missouri.
Scheduled to be a free agent. By the way, Mizzou has two potential first-round picks. They have the guard. They have the wide receiver. Those are going to be some big names out there at the Combine. Zach Bond, obviously, the Eagles. Ernest Jones, who really was the key to the turnaround to the Seahawks defense after they traded for him. Jamian Sherwood, you're like, wait a minute, Jets? He was named the team MVP by the locker room and actually had a really good year, and he's age 25. He could be an under-the-radar guy. maybe.
I love that kid from the Chiefs. I love Bolton.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if he's available or what's going to happen there, but I think he's really good.
You know what I thought was interesting was both Ossenfort and Gannon were asked at the podium about Gannon's history and knowledge of a handful of Eagles defenders who are going to be free agents here in the next couple of days, and both the head coach and general manager talking about that and maybe some pros that the Cardinals could have because of that connection. And Ossenfort was saying, any information, any extra knowledge is helpful and good for him. However, just because it works in one place doesn't necessarily mean it works in another. And it's an interesting dynamic because Ossenfort can't necessarily call up Eagles general manager and say, hey, can you tell me about this player who you're letting walk? There's certain things where you can get information and can't, and just because it worked in Philly doesn't necessarily mean it would work in Arizona, although it was interesting to hear both of them talk about just the concept of that extra knowledge and chemistry that Gannon has with some expected free agents coming out of Philly.
I mean, at the very least, if you go for a free agent that Gannon has coached before, you avoid a disaster like Jordan Phillips from a few years ago, right? Because you know the person as well as the player. So I think, that just gives them that much more ability to feel confident in extending that sort of free agent money and going on a limb with someone you can't necessarily research as much as a draft pick and get that immediate access to him. You know what else I found interesting on Jonathan Gannon, at least with the media, was his praise for Trey Benson.
Yeah.
And his willingness to say, you know what, we might have a couple of number ones at running back if Trey continues his ascension. And, based on those 2, 3, 4 games we saw before he got injured, where he really started looking like, the same style of running as a James Conner, you know what? It's very plausible. That wasn't media speak. I could definitely see that.
It's interesting, Paul, because running back is one of the deeper positions in this draft class, although when you're talking about the depth that the Cardinals have and the production they had from the depth in this past season, doesn't scream a need the way so many other positions do. But that is definitely going to be an interesting topic of the Cardinals have been productive in the run game, 7th best run game, 1,000-yard rusher in James Conner. So what's going to be the discussion there of you like the running backs that you have, but you have to discuss how deep this class is.
The other one was Darius Robinson. Didn't Gannon pretty much admit he wasn't 100% all year?
Yeah.
He said, not fully healthy.
And I think with, you're talking about a couple of guys from last year's class who I think came in with a lot of expectations, both Benson and Robinson. It went differently. I mean, obviously Benson got hurt, but we got to see a lot of him before he got hurt, and I just think it never quite clicked until the very end. Robinson obviously not being healthy and missing most of the season, I think just really torpedoed what he was doing. But I think that gives you optimism for what he was going. I know that Gannon said, you could have 2 number 1 backs, but he said that was if Trey Benson makes the jump that everybody's expecting him to make in year 1 to year 2. And that's fair. He even said with Darius Robinson, he wouldn't even go and say he's had a year under his belt. He said this was more like, he
year
said
1.5.
Year 1.5 because he did miss so much time and he was so bad. So will there be a little bit more of a curve for Darius Robinson to get over? I mean, possibly. I just think when we're talking about the defensive lineman in particular, I mean, I know at one point I was thinking their starting defensive line was going to be Justin Jones, Bilal Nichols, and Darius Robinson, and that never happened. That group never happened, and those 3 guys barely played football total.
There are a lot of question marks on the defensive line, question marks that were presumably answered this time last year by bringing in Jones and Nichols in free agency and drafting Robinson, and the fact that they played a combined 15 games between the 3 of them, not even a full season. There are still question marks there. Now, they are all under contract going into next season. However, you have to do an evaluation of figuring out, okay, what do we actually have with these players who we didn't get to see a full season of, and let that lead you to the answers and decisions that need to be made in free agency and the draft. It's a balance of re-signing players or looking in free agency and looking into the draft. And something Ossenfort talked about Tuesday at the podium was they don't want to go into the draft feeling like they can't play a game at that moment. That's something you're going to adjust in free agency for, is by the time they get to the draft, Ossenfort says they want to feel like if they had to play a game that day, they could. You're looking to supplement more of those younger players in the draft that you're likely going to have some time developing, as opposed to having them come in and be premier players, immediate impact from the jump.
By the way, let's just say L.J. Collier and Roy Lopez go elsewhere. Maybe there is room for an outside free agent at D-line. That's something I didn't even think about, just based on the fact that they extended offers a year ago to Bilal Nichols and Justin Jones. But if indeed you lose those two veterans, there are a couple of interesting names out there. The Niners say they're going to release Javon Hargrave, who has connections with who? The head coach, Jonathan Gannon. DeMarcus Lawrence, coming off that dreaded Liz Frank injury, the foot injury, but he has been very, very productive over his career. Maybe the price is right on a one-year prove-it deal there. Jerron Reed, who has been a headache with the Seahawks at times over the years. And then our guy, 39-year-old Calais Campbell, will be out there. I'm just throwing some names out.
I think it's the same person, but last week when I was out,
why'd you look at me like that?
I'm trying to have a good conversation with you, Dani. When I was out, Craig Grielou and Zach Gershman tag teamed the mailbag, and somebody asked about Calais Campbell, and then I noticed, which I didn't put in this week, I got the same exact question this week.
They were not happy with the answers from Zach
not.
and Craig.
Yeah.
So
yeah. By the way, I saw a quick interview with Tony Boselli, right, the new decision maker with Jacksonville. He said the reason that his young head coach and his even younger general manager both got the job is because they believe in the line of scrimmage. They believe in the run game. And it sounds like it was almost that easy, like sold. And boom, okay, you're coming in. So the reemergence of the run game in the NFL is still very alive and well. There's and by the way, go ahead.
And I don't mean to interrupt, Paul, but I did want to say, like, at one point, Jonathan Gannon was asked about the line of scrimmage, and I'm paraphrasing, but he basically said, you can go to my son's game, and he's in the third grade, to middle school, to high school games, to the national championship in college, to the Super Bowl. It's about blocking and tackling. It's about the trenches, and that's where it starts, and that's what teams should be looking at. And so I just know that we've talked about it a lot. I think the strength of this draft lies in the trenches anyways, but it just seems as we get closer and closer, all the signs point to them leaning into that, right?
More so on the defensive side of the ball. Now, Ossenfort has drafted 4 offensive linemen in his tenure in Arizona. Doesn't necessarily mean he's going to draft another one this year, especially when you have some of your starters who are going to expectedly hit the market here in the next couple of days. It does bode well for the Cardinals that some of their most glaring needs are defensive linemen and pass rushers, and those are 2 of the deepest classes in this year's draft.
In fact, 2 more mock drafts out today, because I know Darren can't go another moment without getting the latest on the mock draft update desk.
Love the mocks.
Mel Kiper 2.0, number 16 overall, Shamar Stewart out of Texas A&M, who, for my money, reminds me way too much of Trayvon Walker, almost the exact same measurables, 6'5", 281 versus 6'5", 273 for Trayvon Walker, who, by the way, in his college career, all 3 years at Georgia, had 9.5 sacks. That's it. And Shamar Stewart has had 1.5 sacks each of his 3 years at A&M. So all the measurables, all the upside, none of the production. I'm not sure the Cardinals
Paul,
are going there.
How do you necessarily measure production? Just outside sacks, I mean, you have to look at disrupting the quarterback, right? And being productive in other ways outside of sacks.
So, like, for example, on Shamar Stewart, it wasn't just even sacks. Here, he also was really deficient in, like, tackles for loss and quarterback hits. It just scares me. That's all
fair.
That's all I'm saying. And by the way, what's interesting is number 16 a year ago was the Seahawks' Byron Murphy going defensive line, right, out of Texas. And all year long, his rookie season, half sack in 14 games, 2 tackles for loss, a single quarterback hit for Byron Murphy II, the rookie out of Texas who was the D lineman taken 16 overall a year ago. In fact, Grielou reminded me, he said, what is your slogan this year? Calvisi Consulting, because remember, last year this time we started working it up, and it was let there be a fourth QB. Remember that one?
Oh, how could we forget, Paul?
Yeah, well, it didn't exactly, work out that way. Even though there were 6 quarterbacks in the top 12, they went 1, 2, 3, 8, 10, 12. There really wasn't a viable consideration at 4, and so we've been trying to work on a marketing slogan maybe for this year. You guys ready? Came up with a couple.
We're so ready, so ready.
It's a little raw. It's only half cooked. It's not quite out of the oven yet.
Just come on, Paul.
Find a pass rush machine at 16.
I like that.
Okay, that's not bad. I hate giving you that kind of credit, but that's not bad.
Here's one. Turn 16 into a crime scene. #steal.
I'm not as high on that one.
I'm not as high on that one, but I am impressed with that kind of thought process. That's
And the last one I'm working on, once again, this is within the last hour. They need to be polished up here, or maybe just deleted. I'm thinking 16. I'm thinking Phoenix Open. More takedowns at 16 than the Phoenix Open, something like that. That one's a little. I got to work on that.
How about can you do something with Sweet 16?
I did have that down, Sweet 16 or like 16 Candles, which would be more in the genre and the wheelhouse for like a Darren and myself,
I've seen that movie.
history, So,
You keep working on it. I like the first one, Paul. Yeah. 1 of 3, not bad.
You know what? I might as well continue my losing ways here as we make the transition here midway through. Cardinals Underground, brought to you by Pacific Office Automation. It is the return, against my wishes, of Wise Guy Trivia.
It's time for The Wise Guy, the world's fastest growing Cardinals quiz show. The stakes are low, the winner gets absolutely nothing. Here's your hostess with the mostest, Dani Sureck.
I have missed that intro. I know Darren has as well, because what were you, 15-2 in the regular season against Paul?
It's all about the competition,
so
Dani.
Will we
don't worry about
continue the
records.
record,
It's about
or is
the
it start
process.
over?
You know what? In 2 weeks, it's a new league year, and Dani, you're not allowed. You're not allowed to mention the record from last year. That will be so last year at that point.
So last year.
Okay, so I gotta admit, I don't have it written down who won the last Wise Guy of the regular season. I'm gonna take a hunch and say it was Darren.
Probably.
So, Darren, we will get you first pick of the question.
I'm going to defer to Paul.
Whoa. Paul, pick a number.
I don't need anyone's charity around here. Obviously, we're going with 2.
Okay, here we go. In 1999, the Cardinals selected Ohio State wide receiver David Boston with the 8th pick in the draft. The Cardinals also had the 21st overall selection that year. Which player did they select with that pick? Hint. He was a lineman. All these questions, just so you both know, are going to be draft-centric.
21st,
1999, 21st overall selection.
L.J. Shelton.
You got it. Oops.
Not sure. Yeah.
That was an amazing reaction. Congratulations, Paul. You got it right.
It feels good when we have to add in a bleep a little bit later, and actually get a genuine bleep out of Darren.
Boy.
So
that was actually the draft. The Cardinals also selected defensive back Paris Johnson Sr. out of Miami of Ohio with the 5th round pick. Great job, Paul.
Could that be the first lead I've enjoyed in Wise Guy history?
Should we just cut it here?
Don't answer that.
Stop while
you're ahead.
ahead.
Here we go.
Darren, pick a question.
Number 4, please.
Okay. This 4-time Pro Bowl player, an 11-year NFL defender, has the distinction of being the first ever draft pick of the Phoenix Cardinals shortly after the team moved to Arizona in 1988.
Okay, could you repeat the first part again?
I sure can. This 4-time Pro Bowl player, an 11-year NFL defender, has the distinction of being the first ever draft pick of the Phoenix Cardinals shortly after the team moved to Arizona in 1988.
Is it Eric Hill?
It is not.
Oof.
Paul has the opportunity to steal.
Well, good news, bad news. Good news, I have an opportunity. Darren got it wrong. The bad news is that was my answer. So let's see here. Who can I come up with? 4-time Pro Bowler, 1988. Tim McDonald.
Oh, boy, that's a good
Paul,
one.
you are going to slap yourself when you hear this answer. Out of Cal, linebacker Ken Harvey.
No way. He made 4 Pro Bowls? Really? My guy, Ken Harvey? Oh,
I don't know if he made them all with the Cardinals. But
Actually, shared a class with Ken Harvey. Okay, here we go. That's
What class was it,
it's
Paul?
deplorable. It's I don't know. I was a freshman. He was graduating. All I remember is way back of a 500-person lecture hall. I'm like, that guy is huge. Oh, that's Ken Harvey. Okay, thank you.
Paul,
I'm
question
struggling.
1 or 3?
One.
You put it away, Paul, if you get this right.
Give me one because I'm
No
going to
pressure.
finish number 1 in this edition of Wise Guy Trivia. Here we go.
Let's see. The final selection of each draft class is known as Mr. Irrelevant. The Cardinals have selected Mr. Irrelevant 4 times. In 2015, the Cardinals selected this former Louisville tight end with the final pick of the draft.
Okay, I can actually see him. I'm at his locker. I'm interviewing him. I'm actually asking him questions. Gerald Williams.
We have to say incorrect. Darren can steal.
I'm close.
Yeah, you are close. That's why I'm trying to figure it out.
And I shouldn't offer that to Darren.
I
Do not think out loud.
don't know. Gerald Wilkins. I don't know why I'm
Gerald Christian.
Christian.
Darren, you're still in this.
Oh,
I am
goodness.
still in this. That's true.
Okay. All
All
right,
comes
here
down
we
to
go.
this.
We might have to go to a tiebreaker. Okay.
Oh, well, we'll be ready. Okay. On the eve of the 1995 NFL Draft, the Cardinals sent a first and fourth round pick to an AFC East team to acquire this Pro Bowl offensive weapon. Name the team and the player.
Rob Moore and the Jets.
Correct, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to a tiebreaker.
Unreal.
I can't believe I missed Gerald Christian. Actually, I'm more mad that you got L.J. Shelton because obviously I thought you were going to miss that.
Okay. Tiebreaker. You both ready?
I've been ready.
Okay. Pass rusher Marcus Golden was the Cardinals' second-round selection in the 2015 NFL Draft. How many career sacks did Junkyard Dog have in his 9-year NFL career?
we need an exact number right here.
Well, yeah,
Okay.
because don't say it out loud, Paul, because I'll write mine down.
Yes.
And then you can
I
say yours
see.
out loud.
Okay, so this Price is Right, closest to the number.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Let's see.
Paul sounds like he is thinking hard.
Well, it happens.
I'm violating my rule. No math here. Okay. Yeah.
Darren has written his down, so when you are ready, Paul, you can say your number.
Okay. I'll go Ronnie Lott, 42.
Darren went with,
43.
and the correct answer is 51.
Oh, my God. I actually had 51 for a minute there.
Come on.
He had 35 and a half with the Cardinals. Darren continues his
That's
streak.
unbelievable.
Sorry, Paul.
That was fun. I'm glad we brought that back.
We're not. You know what? What's my mantra after this last season? Finish drives, finish games, finish seasons, finish Wise Guy Trivia. That's what I
You
get.
know what, Paul? The new league year can be a fresh start
The
for you.
new league year. That's right.
Okay. What else stands out from the combine? I mean, I see like they have I see these crazy little stories like there's brand new turf in the dome. Only 2 locations in the world have this sort of turf. So they took the end zone from one side of the field. They brought it into like the performance center so guys
Wow,
can
you're
train
seeing
on
stories
this
we haven't
turf.
seen, I don't think.
I mean,
Yeah.
have you guys done an investigative story on the turf? Guys are trying to, they got to test out the turf so they make sure they get proper traction when they run their 40. I've seen stuff like that out there.
No, we haven't seen anything like that. There's just been a lot of tush-push talk.
You're right.
You've seen that, right?
Yes, I've seen that. Nick Sirianni took it personal a little bit. The whole, Nick Sirianni up there saying, because you notice that a number of NFL decision makers have cited, there might be health and injury concerns. Sirianni pushed back on that, saying, I think that's a little made up. I can't remember one injury. We had in that play, and we ran it more than anybody else. And then someone else said, well, Nick, what about, people who think the tush push is like an automatic? And he said, I almost feel like I should be a little insulted because we worked so hard on that play and our guys are talented at that play. So, okay. But there's led by the Packers, there's definitely a movement to eradicate the tush push.
Which we've talked about of it
Yeah,
being
we've
a
talked about
rugby
it.
play and
It's
being
a
able to
rugby
push
play.
another player.
I'm okay with lining up. Just don't let them come from behind. I mean, and if that's all, whatever.
Don't push the tush.
What about the quarterback talk
Yes,
in
clip that, Omo.
the NFC West? I bring that up because low key there are some quarterback questions in the rest of the division. Are there not? I mean, the Rams giving Matthew Stafford permission to speak to other teams, and via Albert Breer, the Giants, the Steelers, the Browns, and the Raiders have shown interest in a potential Matthew Stafford trade.
I mean, why wouldn't you be interested in Matthew Stafford if you're quarterback needy?
Yeah.
Which I would include the Rams with that. I don't really understand.
Unless they want to go younger.
I mean,
Well, I'm sure they want to go younger, but they don't have that person yet.
I'm guessing. I mean, they're used to paying him 25 to 30 a year, and he wants 50 to 55 a year. So the Rams aren't interested. I'm guessing.
That's probably fair.
By the way, GM John Schneider of the Seahawks told reporters, I think today, that the Seahawks are going to meet with Geno Smith, Team Geno, and his agents this week about talks on a contract extension for Geno Smith. So there's that. I guess John Schneider got grilled a little bit about building an offensive line, and as one Seahawks beat writer pointed out, since he took over in 2010, here's a wise guy trivia for you. How many Pro Bowl offensive linemen has the longtime GM of the Seahawks drafted in his Seattle career?
Good question.
It was his
drafted.
It was his very first pick in 2010. Russell Okung.
Oh my God, I wouldn't have come up with that.
And since then, he has selected 23 offensive linemen in the last 15 years, and he's 0 for the Pro Bowl. So Seahawks faithful, the 12s, are getting a little irritated they can't build an offensive line. And they're also irritated with some of the top picks they've had over the last decade. And if you want to name names, I'll gladly do so. James Carpenter, Paul Richardson, who was number 45, Jermaine Ifedi, Malik McDowell, number 35, Rashad Penny, L.J. Collier, Dwayne Eskridge, those were all first-rounders. Of course, he hit a couple of years ago with Devon Witherspoon and Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Yeah, and why? Why did he hit on those two as opposed to some of the? I mean, all those other ones, aren't they all in like 25 to 32?
More like 15 to 30, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you still got to hit, but that's what happens when you're picking later, right?
By the way, did you guys see the viral video? I don't know if I can call it viral, but it made quite an impression on social media. Flying out to Indianapolis, Pete Carroll, he was in boarding class D. He was in an exit row. And then he walked up to first class and spent over an hour talking to Seahawks coach Mike McDonald and his former GM John Schneider. And they had a very serious hour-long conversation, and there's already speculation maybe the Raiders and Seahawks swing some sort of deal at some point. So there's that. There's that. And then there's
DK Metcalf?
There's the Brock Purdy update desk. And apparently some beat writer for the Niners has created he needs his own oven mitts for his hot take. He's been trying to push Brock Purdy trade for Matthew Stafford. Niners and Rams get together on a blockbuster in the division quarterback deal.
In what world would that happen?
And so he's getting shouted down right now.
Yeah,
this beat writer.
That's probably good.
Yeah.
And the Rams would make that trade knowing they'd have to pay Purdy?
If they don't want to pay Matthew Stafford $55 million, why would you want to pay Brock Purdy $55 million?
By the way,
with all due respect to Brock Purdy.
Stephen Jones, executive VP of the Cowboys, said, Trey Lance, thanks, but no thanks. They're moving on from Trey Lance, just to let you know. So do you add him to the list of potential quarterbacks the Cardinals could consider? Because, Dani, what did Monti Ossenfort or Jonathan Gannon, either one, weren't they asked the quarterback question as a backup for Kyler today?
It wasn't phrased necessarily as a backup. It was more so just the thought of adding another quarterback to that room, which to me would be silly not to. You're going to need a body regardless. You're going to need 3 quarterbacks as you get later into the offseason. So that to me is kind of a no-brainer, especially when you want to have competition. That is something that Ossenfort talked about, is wanting to have competition in every room. I don't see that as bringing in a quarterback to vie for the starting role against Kyler Murray. I see that as you're going to fight for the backup spot against Clayton Tune. If it is a veteran, that can be beneficial. Think of a couple years ago with Colt McCoy, somebody who was able to help Murray understand the game a little more and just grow. Now, Murray is a couple years past that and has a better understanding in who he is and what he can do in reading defenses. It wouldn't hurt necessarily to bring in a veteran for a fresh set of eyes and to help Murray in that sense as well. I don't personally take that as we're going to bring in a quarterback to see if he can be our starter. I see that more as competition for your backup. So to me, that discussion and hearing that doesn't set off any alarms.
No, I would even take it a step further. I mean, I do think they wouldn't mind some competition with like Clayton Tune, let's say, for instance. But the bottom line is, Paul, they have 2 quarterbacks on the roster right now. Like, literally just for logistics alone, they need at least 1 more arm, if not 2, to add to the roster just to have, even if Clayton Tune remains your backup. So, yeah, they're going to add a quarterback.
Okay, so 2 things here. One, who do you think is a clubhouse leader, if anyone? I'm going to read some names of free agent quarterbacks. You tell me who might make sense or merit consideration. And then I'm going to give you my own hot take as I hit zoom out, okay? Because, I can't let that 49ers beat writer get away with all the hot takes around here. Here we go. Free agent QBs, the least that I have down: Sam Darnold, Russell Wilson, Marcus Mariota, Jimmy Garoppolo, Jacoby Brissett, Jameis Winston, Tyler Huntley, Aaron Rodgers, Trey Lance. Okay? I have 2 in there that might be feasible, plausible, doable. Marcus Mariota, Jimmy Garoppolo. Does he have Monti ties to the New England days?
Darren is shaking his head no.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know if he has ties, but Jimmy Garoppolo's not. The one guy on that list that I would be interested in would be Mariota. As a backup.
Does seem like a fit.
The question of Sam Darnold after the year he had in Minnesota, the question is he going to try and go get money elsewhere and be somewhere where he can.
Why would Sam Darnold
fight
not
as a
end up at a
starter?
place where he could start?
Exactly.
Like, he's going to start somewhere. He should start somewhere. He deserves to start somewhere.
Had a good year.
I guess I should throw Daniel Jones in there, right? I guess I should add that into
He's already on the
list.
Vikings, isn't he?
Is he? But isn't he? He's not a free agent come the league year?
I thought they signed him to a deal at the end of the year so that he wouldn't be a free agent.
Gotcha. All right.
I could be wrong on that. I'll look that up for you, Paul. Don't you fret.
Here. Okay, so while you do that, this is just me thinking out loud. Did I mention this is me thinking out loud? Here we go. If this is a quarterback poor draft, at least in terms of depth, and it is, and there are a number of teams who are desperate for a quarterback, for a future at the most important position in sports. Do you think as Monti Ossenfort walks around, and maybe any other number of GMs walk around, that there are 2 types of GMs, those who have their franchise quarterback and those who do not and they're desperate? Do you think Monti is fielding a few inquiries from other teams? Hey, Monti, what would it take? Maybe teams come up and say, hey, you didn't draft your quarterback. What do you think? What would it take? Do you think that happens? I have never been to a combine. You 2 go every year. So I put it to you. Do you think that might happen at some point this week?
Do I think discussions like that happen? Yes. Do I think that discussions specifically about Kyler Murray happen? I don't know. I think that this front office and this coaching staff feels very strongly about their quarterback and the work that he has put in and what they have seen from him in the year and a half that they have been coaching him. I do think from a broader standpoint as a general manager for any team, isn't that your due diligence to at least listen to what people have to offer, what they have to say, so you can have an idea, even if you have no interest whatsoever in moving any sort of player or making a trade? Shouldn't you at least have open ears?
I think there's 3 things here. One, I think that if we ever could have like a list made out of all the things that were talked about at the Combine that never actually happened, it would be fascinating reading. 2, Paul, you're right, Daniel Jones is a free agent. And 3, this was Jonathan Gannon 2 hours ago, asked about Kyler Murray. I'm not going to make any power statements but he's going to have a hell of a year. I mean, that doesn't sound like a guy who's giving any thought to doing something else besides playing Kyler Murray as the number one quarterback, which, quite frankly, I've thought all along anyways, and really we've never been given any reason to think otherwise other than, no disrespect for anybody in the listening audience, all the fan base people that want to move on from him. You're the only ones. The team doesn't want to. The team has never wanted to. Not at this point.
And the other reason I throw that out is about a week ago or so we had that rogue report that the Steelers made inquiries to Jacksonville about the availability of Trevor Lawrence. Like, just, and then in light of the Luka Doncic trade, you're like, okay, wait a minute. Maybe some of these teams are feeling themselves and they're more apt to inquire about a blockbuster. I just throw it out there, It's sort of like a buddy of mine. He's got this really rare classic car, and he takes it to shows, and he sits there, and he's not giving it up. He doesn't need the money, but I can't tell you how many people come up to him. How much? So how much? I'll buy that right now, cash. How much? And he always listens. He always lets them name the price, and then he shakes his head and says no. So I just throw that out there.
So is he listening, or is he just not being rude? Because really, if it's never ever going to happen, are you really listening?
Well, if they blew his hair back with an absurd offer, yeah, I bet he would pull the trigger. I'll say that much. So just that's it. Just throw it out there.
You are happy where you're living right now, Paul, correct?
Sure.
This is going to be good.
Yes.
I assume your family is.
As far as I know, are you telling me? Are you reporting something, Darren?
No, I'm not reporting anything. I'm setting you up.
Okay.
I'm setting you up for this question. What could you give us a ballpark of what kind of offer it would take for you to move out of your house next week?
No, there's a number. If somebody knocked on my front door with a number, I could give them a number. Oh yeah, I could.
Yeah, but is it like a realistic number, or is it like dumb?
It's definitely above market value.
Well, yeah, it's got to be above market value.
Sure.
But if you're going to sit there and say, yeah, if somebody came and offered me $5 million for my house, I'm moving. Well, yeah, no. Okay, I don't want to be
Speaking of Kyler, we do want, speaking of the over-under on Darren getting bleeped, by the way, is 1.5. The according to People magazine, Olympic gold medalist Noah Lyles is going to race Tyreek Hill. We bring that up for two reasons. Number one, Noah Lyles has a connection to the Cardinals a little bit. That Rams game week 2, right? He was the guy cranking the big red siren back in September.
Worked out. Cardinals with a big win.
Yes. But it begets this question: which current Cardinal would you like to see race another Cardinal, or maybe even a Cardinal from the past? And that's my segue, because you know what? To me, I'll take Kyler racing anybody. You name him, I want to see it. I want to see Kyler. If you go back to his rookie year, it could have even been rookie minicamp. Do you remember, Darren, the video the Cardinals department got at the end of one of the workouts? Andy Isabella.
My bingo card. Mr.
4-3 against Kyler Murray, and it was pretty much a dead heat.
Yeah, it was.
How about this one? Kyler Murray and Hollywood Brown.
That's a good one. That is a good one.
Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie was pretty fast.
Oh, boy. There aren't many guys I would take against Kyler. I would take DRC. Yeah, young DRC.
Young DRC was pretty.
He ran with Chris Johnson, that 180-plus yard touchdown run that Chris Johnson ripped off in Nashville.
That's exactly what popped into my head when we just brought him up.
Yep.
You know what could be fun is Paul Calvisi and Darren Urban, because Darren has longer legs, but he doesn't have a great back. So can Paul take advantage?
My knees are shot.
No, you guys are there, so somebody has to race Rich Eisen, as Kyle Vandenbosch brought up earlier. It was Craig Grialou against Rich Eisen.
I think I just pulled something talking about it.
I see. Okay. Well, you know what? That seems like a logical segue into, well, you know how this works around here. There's the good, there's the bad, and then there's winning behavior.
I see you. Let's go.
Can you display winning behavior? You have to consistently display winning behavior.
That's winning behavior.
You got to define what winning behavior is and hold people to that standard.
Yes.
Once upon a time, Cardinals Hall of Famer Aeneas Williams was fond of telling the media after a loss, you take lemons and you make lemonade. That was one of his favorites, his go-to.
Sunny disposition, that Aeneas Williams. Terrence
Shannon Jr. He is the guy whose jersey was hung in the rafters upside down. He has decided to make light of it and actually make a revenue stream out of it on behalf of the Boys and Girls Clubs. How about that? He's selling T-shirts with the upside-down wording and a screenshot on a T-shirt, and all proceeds benefiting the Boys and Girls Club. So, you know what? That's well done. That's a double ding right there for Terrence Shannon Jr.
As a refresher to anybody who was unfamiliar, he had his number retired at University of Illinois, and they unfurled the banner. And
Paul had a conspiracy theory about that last week.
Of course he did. What was
Calvisi
it?
Conspiracy.
Yeah, it had something to do.
Have you looked into it?
Well, no, I haven't looked into it, but I think the locals were protesting the fact that they decided to retire his jersey, considering he'd only played there 2 years. The first 3 years of his career were like at A&M, okay, yeah. And then he also had a suspension, which I'll let you look up.
Yeah, I know, but he was exonerated on that.
He was. So
I throw this in. This isn't on our list, Paul. But winning behavior,
yep.
I'm going to have to give a big winning behavior totally to Diana Taurasi, who apparently is retiring.
Oh, man.
And so she apparently has said that to a couple outlets now. So Diana Taurasi, fantastic, one of the best women's basketball players ever. Played her whole WNBA career with the Phoenix Mercury, and so we were all lucky to see her play, and she's retiring. So she definitely had winning behavior.
Yeah, the D&DT stands for double ding on that one, no doubt. I remember there was a Mercury Media Day I showed up, Paulie Pancake Makeup. We sat down, and she gave the best one, seriously, a top 5 interview in my career. She was unbelievable, and I'm not sure I even asked one question. She just went. She's like read my mind what I wanted to talk about. She could walk in and be the the next Charles Barkley. I'm convinced she is fantastic.
And she might be.
She might. I mean, if she goes the broadcasting route, she will crush it. Speaking of basketball, Darren, it says here that you and your son had a moment in regards to Hoosiers.
Okay, so it's quick highlight. So I was on vacation last week, and I was looking at social media, and one of those on this date thing popped up.
A memory.
One of my posts. Yeah, memory. I couldn't remember that word. It's because I don't have a memory, apparently. And it was a couple pictures that I had taken of when my younger son was a senior in high school playing basketball. My older son was coaching that year. And I put the 2 pictures up, and then my note in the post was, I love you guys. And then I had * Norman Dale voice, *. And I put it in the family group chat just to put it in there to remind everybody. And my younger son wrote back, WTF is Norman Dale. And I was just crushed.
Paul, I have to have a quick side note.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Where our table is in Radio Row, we are on the edge, table 40, if you were curious. And to our left, they have a TV on some wheels, and it's been playing, ESPN, NFL Network throughout the day. They currently have Week 8 from the season, CBS game. There is 18 seconds left in the fourth quarter, and Chicago is up 15-12 over Washington. Do you want us to give a play-by-play of what happens, anything with maybe a certain DB who might land on the list of incompetents?
Well, he's currently number 4. He's holding strong at number 4 on the power poll of ineptitude.
Well, we've got about 18 seconds left in this game. Right
Tyreek Stevenson will pretty much play it into existence here in 18 seconds from now. So
there you go.
By the way, Darren's acronym there, does that qualify as a bleep? Did he hit the over on the over-under? I'm not exactly sure. Okay, so
what was my acronym?
WTF?
Oh,
by the way,
that was in print.
I mean, Darren, you're in Indiana right now. You're in the Hoosier State, and then you're telling your story about Norman Dale.
First of all, that scene gets me choked up every single time I see it, and secondly, I know my son saw this post before because I'm sure I sent it in the family chat the first time I put it up.
Okay, so here's my segue from Hoosiers to Hooters. And speaking of getting choked up, Devin Booker tweeted out, "Please don't go," when he was notified or found out that apparently Hooters might end up filing for bankruptcy. It might be no mas sometime in the near future.
Well, here's the full context.
Okay.
Back in 2012, 2011, there was an old tweet from Devin Booker about how he was saying he wanted to go to Hooters with his friends. There's like a couple tweets about that. So people found it, quote tweeted it to make sure he saw the news about the bankruptcy. So that's why
going to Hooters with the
that.
fellas. That's a meme tweet from Devin Booker.
Paul, there's 2 seconds left in the game.
Oh boy.
Here he goes. Jaden Daniels is fading
Dropping back.
I don't know what's going to happen.
Not a lot of
here.
pressure. Oh, he's scrambling.
I know this moment just means so much to Paul Calvisi.
Well, this moment, Tyreek Stevenson is still jawing with the fans.
Let it rip.
He's still
There's
jawing.
No way.
Now he realizes the ball's in the air.
Unbelievable. Caught for a Hail Mary to end the game.
You know what?
Who saw that coming?
There's somebody from Chicago who's over here doing Chicago podcasts, and he just was live streaming that. He's talking to his phone while he's showing recording the television. So I think Bears fans know all about it.
Right now, I misspoke. Tyreek Stevenson, the Hail Mary epic fail that you guys just witnessed, is number 3 in the power poll of ineptitude. Ray Gunn is number 1.
Ray Gunn.
My girl.
Nico Harrison has gone all the way up to 2 because apparently the Mavs GM, he needs security detail on the road. It's so, I mean, that's how bad it is. So there's your top 3 right now. So just to let you know.
That's fair. They've all deserved it.
Yeah. So back to Hooters, I guess.
Please tell me you're clipping that, Omo. You have to clip that one.
Can we have like an out of context blooper reel or something?
Is there a soundbite to go with this? Is that why we're no? Okay, all right.
Oh my God!
Just continue on your own.
Awesome. So here's the payoff that I avoided was or the latest in the story. Dani gave the background. The latest is that a food delivery service that will take food right to your door has offered to give Devin Booker free wings until or when Hooters closes for good. So there you go.
That's
lucky him.
How about
that's
that?
one of those stories that you love feel good endings, Paul.
Yeah,
you really do.
Okay, I'm going to throw in my own.
Wings for a buck.
I'm going to throw in my own. Here we go. Winning behavior. You guys ready for this one? No one knows this one is coming.
I don't know.
So ready.
Headline: Gen Z battling with phone anxiety are now taking telephobia courses to learn the lost art of a phone call.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Gen Z, born between 1997 and 2012, they're struggling with telephobia, describing people who fear phone calls. It's a fear or anxiety around making and receiving phone calls because, see, Gen Z apparently hasn't had the opportunity over the course of their lifetime to really develop this skill. It's a lost skill because they use their phone for anything except making or receiving a phone call. So there's a college now that is holding telephobia seminars where they simulate everyday scenarios where they start them out by making a call to make an appointment, call in sick to work, okay? And there's 2 aspects of this. One, apparently Gen Z has been failing at job interviews because usually the first step is a phone interview.
Oof.
And they're awful. And they have serious anxiety. The twist, they say, is that many of these same Gen Zers are very comfortable on video calls because they can see the other person. They get anxiety when they can't see the other person because, according to the therapist, quote, they think they're being laughed at when they can't see the other person.
Darren, don't give in to their insecurities.
Oh,
you just missed that window, by the way, Dani.
The telephobia.
No, I don't have that. I do know people who don't like talking on the phone and don't like making appointments, which is crazy. But I believe that. Think of that age group and growing up with cell phones and social media at your fingertips and even playing games on an iPad. That's what they've grown up with. And the video calls. I mean, think of COVID and virtual learning and all of those things. That is pretty crazy, though, that they have a course.
Social interaction is just falling apart.
What happened to the days of when you had to call a landline after school? You had to have your friends' numbers memorized, and then if they really have a phobia they want to work through, try being a little kid and your friend's parent answers the phone and you have to talk to the parent and ask if their kid is available to talk to you.
What happened to the day when you had to hope that your phone cord was long enough that you could take it around 2 corners and hide in the bathroom when you were talking to somebody because you didn't want everybody hearing your phone call?
Okay. So there you go. That's winning behavior. You know what would be winning behavior at the combine?
Wait, is that winning behavior or not?
Do your kids talk on the phone, Paul?
The 15-year-old does, no doubt. Yeah. In fact, she's doing a lot more talking on the phone than she is homework based on her last quarterly report. So that'll
not winning behavior.
Not winning behavior.
Yeah. Not everyone can be Travis Hunter. That's another segue. That's scheduled. So Travis Hunter, the Heisman winner, is scheduled to work out Friday with the DBs. But are you guys aware that the organizers there at the Combine have invited him to spend an extra night and work out Saturday with the receivers? Supposedly he's thinking about it because it would make him the first true two-way player in Combine history.
I'll be honest, I'm a little surprised he's doing the workouts. I would have thought with somebody going to be a top 5 pick that he'd just be like, nah, I'm going to stand loudly on my game.
Has he made a statement that I haven't seen about a preference?
Oh, I think he wants to play both. I think the league is saying DB first, and yeah, he probably will play some receiver, but he's going to focus on DB first. I think that's kind of the thought process. Because there's a lot of people that think Travis Hunter could be an all-world defensive back. He'd be a really good receiver, but there's a lot of really good receivers. I don't know. I don't think the Cardinals have to worry about Travis Hunter. That's just me.
Well, Darren, may I suggest, humbly suggest that at some point you should connect with Roy Green.
Oh, yeah.
And
that's a good one.
We brought Roy Green into a TV studio a couple weeks ago, and that was one of the questions I asked him. He had a fascinating answer about Travis Hunter. And basically, he said what Dani said, and that is, look, he probably should start a DB and be a full-time defensive back, mix him some receiver, but at no point can you go 80 or 90 snaps a game for a 17-game regular season. That is not feasible. That is not plausible. That is not doable. No. So he is going to have to make a decision. But, yeah, full-time corner, and then you mix him in as a weapon on certain key downs or in a package on offense. And he thinks Travis Hunter could be very successful at doing that because very few people, if any, since Roy Green have been viable in that role, right? Has anyone? I mean, Dion dabbled in it one season. He had like 30-something catches.
Troy Brown of the Patriots played a little bit of defensive back for a couple years, but he was a wide receiver.
That makes the most sense to be a DB and then sprinkle in being a receiver when you're talking about having to understand the playbook and what would be asked of you and where you really need those reps to get comfortable.
All right, anything else? Any postcard items? Anything notable, memorable? Craig Grillo, is he, behaving himself? Winning behavior from Craig Grillo?
Right. He's typing something, so at least he looks like he's working. Oh, he's putting on a headset. Here we go.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Oh, boy, I think he needs to turn himself up.
Yeah, we can't hear you.
Can't hear you. You won't be able to see him on camera, but he's to my right putting on a headset, so.
We still can't hear you.
Why can't you hear me?
There we can hear you now.
Paul, was it not enough that I allowed you to come on the Red Sea Report earlier on Tuesday? Now you need me again for Cardinals Underground?
Yeah, I get it.
You did a great job here last week, Craig.
It's nice to be missed.
So
you need me again for this is 2 straight weeks now, Paul. Do we just need to bump someone off now?
Well, it depends. How many interviews do you have lined up? You got to earn your keep there on the road. How many interviews do you have lined up?
We're three down with I believe 7 to go.
We are working hard on these Cover 2 podcasts.
You can name some names. Daniel Jeremiah I saw was one of them. Name some of the other names. You got some luminaries.
Dane Brugler, Jordan Reed, ESPN, Matt Miller, ESPN. We've got Charles Davis scheduled on Wednesday. Lance Zierlein.
Okay. All right. Some heavy hitters. I like it. All right.
All I know is that Craig got on one episode of Cardinals Underground, and now he can't help himself.
To borrow a phrase from you, Paul, back in the day, I'm busy next week, so don't bother me.
Okay. All right. We'll do. All right. I get it. All right. Anything, dinner plans, anything of note that, we're trying to live vicariously through you guys on the road at the Combine, walking around, rubbing shoulders.
I'm just trying to be as busy and popular as Darren Urban.
We're having a group dinner tomorrow night, Paul, if you want to come on out. I don't know if you do, though.
I'll just make like Coach Double Rainbow. I'll just get my exit row seat, and wander up to first class.
Wander up to first class?
Yeah, just wander in. So
Tom Brady got tight with those Las Vegas purse strings.
I just hope I have time for a nap tomorrow. These days are long. Okay. We do have a lot of content, so sit down with Gannon and Ossenfort. We've got articles, podcasts, videos, all kinds of things.
All right. So what? azcardinals.com, youtube.com/azcardinals, And I guess, that'll do it. You guys can go back to babysitting Craig Grialou there. And we will.
Alex just turned 18, so we're happy about that.
Yeah. Jackson just took off his headphones, so that means we're done.
Okay, Jackson's like, I want to go home.
That's his low-key saying to Calvisi. Wrap it up, and that'll do it here on Cardinals Underground, brought to you by Pacific Office Automation.